And good evening, everybody. Welcome to our recruiting and retention webinar for October 2017. My name is Lieutenant Colonel Darren Ninnis. I'm the National Recruiting and Retention Manager for Civil Air Patrol. And tonight we'll be talking a little bit about how your unit can improve their contacts and how people can get in touch with them on the internet, so that we're not missing the phone calls and the emails that people are sending us. So now this is my first time doing a webinar like this solo, so I'm still trying to figure out where all the pieces and parts are. Unfortunately, I'm missing my lower third thing that has my name on it. Still haven't figured out where that button's at in the webinar software. But we'll be doing this in a PowerPoint format. There should be a live chat on one side of the screen. It's going to be over on that side of the screen, I believe. I have to get my lefts and my rights correct here. And please, if you have a question, put it in the live chat. And every so often I'll stop, take a look at the live chat, and we'll make sure and we can do that. So it'll be a PowerPoint presentation. It's got a few slides, shouldn't be terrible, and we'll burn through this pretty quickly and leave some time for some questions at the end. Hopefully it won't be too long. So please indulge me for a second, and I'm going to get the screen share set up. Let's see. Didn't have it set up already. That was my fault. Okay. And that is the PowerPoint slide. Okay. So, title of tonight's presentation is Answering the Phone, because recruiting starts with contacts. That's an important thing to remember, is that recruiting is a contact sport, like a lot of things. Sales is a contact sport. And this is one of those kind of things that you really need to be making contacts with people all the time. And if people can't get in contact with you, there's trouble. So we'll talk a little bit about the problem at hand, the responsibilities that members are going to have, who's responsible for certain things, and how to fix it and move forward. So real briefly, a little data here, just so everybody kind of understands where we're framing the discussion. Membership in the organization here is on this slide. Total membership is here in green. Cadets are in blue, and total senior members are in red. And as you can see, since 1950, the organization has experienced pretty much a downward trend in membership. As you might see, though, in the last, say, 20 years or so, it's really smoothed off. It's not become any kind of crazy up and downs like we've experienced in the past. It's really become a more smooth and gentle transition when we do have membership changes. But you can see that senior membership, by and large, as evidenced by the red trend line here, has remained relatively flat, whereas cadet membership has sort of declined. I won't say precipitously, but it's declined a fair amount since 1950. We can look at some more important data, though, or some more recent data that we have since January 2000. We have really, really good data on how many members are joining on a monthly basis, and our membership totals here. Slightly different graphic here. You can see, again, the green line represents our total number of cadets, as evidenced by the scale here on the right. So just right about now, we've got a little shy of 25,000 cadets. But you can see here, the red indicates how many members join per month. And each one of these divisions is a year, essentially. And you can see that we have, in the fall, tends to be our top membership joining period in that September-October timeframe, which is the timeframe we're in right now. So you can see those generally, though, we've had a slight decline in the number of cadets, new cadets that join on a monthly basis. Interestingly enough, it's not represented on this chart, but we've actually had the number of cadets renewing is actually trending upwards. So that's helping our membership a little bit. But as you can see, it's moving downwards. We're taking in less new people a month. Senior membership is a little bit different, but sort of the same. Senior membership is trending downward as you can see by the green trend line here, a little bit different than cadet membership. And senior membership doesn't experience the same couple times a year spikes like we see in cadet membership, except back here around 2001, the 9/11 bump right here. We see, you know, we're joining anywhere between 400 and 800 members in a month, new senior members. So this is, again, showing you how many members join per month. Again, this is just mostly to frame the discussion, but we'll talk about this as we go. So the problem is our new member starts, that's the number of new members we've had joining are down. It's a very slow decline, but it is a decline over the last 17 years. National headquarters, we get probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 at least a week inquiries from people who say, I reached out to a local unit and didn't get anything back. Now, I'd like to figure out how many people don't reach out to us when they don't hear back from a CAP unit. I bet that number is quite a bit bigger than we really want to think about. So units need to continually maintain this information that's on their websites and is on the national unit locator if they expect to get information back, if they expect to have people contact them. Now, this membership information, or the contact information, does change a little bit. Commanders change, recruiting officers change, people leave the organization, people come into the organization. So, you know, it's not static. If you've never looked at this information in e-services, chances are you may have wrong information in there, and this is part of the reason why people can't get in touch with you. But it's interesting to note, even some units just don't respond to inquiries. I mean, I even send emails sometimes to units about circumstances, and I don't get an email back, which is kind of interesting. But, you know, I really don't want to think that apathy is our problem here. You know, it's just everybody's motivated. Everybody's interested in being a part of the organization and growing the organization. So it's probably more that we just don't realize that where we've got to go to make the changes. So the issue really is to make sure that your unit contact info is accurate. Is the unit contact info inaccurate? Is that what's causing the problem? Is the unit contact receiving the inquiries? And is the unit contact responding to those inquiries? That's really the hard thing to know. So the responsibilities that we see, the commander needs to ensure that these tasks are being accomplished. Obviously, they're supervising the personnel officer and the recruiting officer, and they're ultimately responsible for what goes on in their unit. Personnel officer creates and forwards a Form 27 when a change of command occurs that gets approved by the wing and forwarded on to national. On that Civil Air Patrol Form 27 is included a lot of information about the unit contacts, particularly recruiting contacts, mailing addresses, things like that. That information is reflected in these services in the personnel app and eventually finds its way into the GoCivilAirPatrol.com website unit locator, which is what we'll be talking about in a second. Recruiting officers' responsibility is to ensure that the unit's contact means actually work. If you have an email address that's recruiting@myunit.com, does that email address actually go to somebody? Or did it go to the recruiting officer 3 recruiting officers ago and, oh, wow, nobody thought to change that? So testing these means and making sure they work is one of the responsibilities of a recruiting officer. Remember, that national database really is only as accurate as you're going to make it. It is not magic. There's actually somebody who has to make these changes. There's not some nebulous gnome at national headquarters that crawls out from underneath the desk at night and makes these changes and goes back away. We make these changes. And this is applicable to all the echelons too. As a recruiting officer, you know, it's probably helpful if you look at, if you're, say, the group recruiting officer or a wing recruiting officer, look at your subordinate units and make sure that they can get something to the units. If somebody has a contact on there, make sure that person's still in Civil Air Patrol. Occasionally hit that email address. Hey, just double checking to make sure this is working. It's important to make sure, because if a subordinate unit doesn't have accurate information, you're going to get those same kind of phone calls. Hey, I tried to get to this squadron and I couldn't. So where do we find this information? So if you go to gocivilairpatrol.com, which is our recruiting website, the unit locator on the right-hand side allows a prospective member to put in their postal code, their zip code, or their city and state to locate a nearby unit. So they put that in and click the search button. And they'll get a list of nearby units. Now, in this particular case, I did it and I forgot to change the range, so I got every unit within 100 miles. Yep, there's at least 30 units within 100 miles of where I live. So you can see here that when it gives you the list of the nearby units, you get a contact phone, a contact email, and other information like the unit's website, when and where they meet. This is the information that we can change in e-services, and we can also change it with a Civil Air Patrol Form 27 to keep it up to date. But it's really easy to change it in e-services if you're the personnel officer, the commander, the deputy commander for cadets, or deputy commander for seniors, or the unit recruiting officer. If you click on a specific unit, it brings up that unit's information. Again, you'll get a phone number. I blurred it out just because I don't want my phone ringing off the hook. So what do I do with that? Take a look at this information. Is the correct contact showing? Is the right person's name there? And the last thing you want is you want to look at this and go, oh man, that was the guy that was the recruiting officer 3 years ago. No wonder we're never hearing from anybody. Is the info right? Might have the right name, but the wrong email address or the wrong phone number. People switch phones pretty frequently these days. Your phone number can change. You never know. And again, does it work? Does sending an email to that address even get to someone? And this is kind of important in the case of when you have a distribution group or a shared mailbox, to make sure that somebody's actually paying attention to that mailbox. So how can I change this information? I keep telling you it's easy to change, and it is. So if you log on to e-services, capnhq.gov, with your CAP ID and your password, navigate to the personnel and membership system. So go to personnel here and navigate up to membership. And once you click on that, you'll be brought to the new menu. The new menuing system confuses us a little bit, so just be aware of it. You have to click the menu up in the upper left-hand corner here, and you'll get this great menu. I kind of cut the middle out of it there. So hit the menu, you see all the choices, and near the bottom is a choice for organization maintenance, or org maintenance, right here. Probably never saw that before. When you bring that up, it will show you your organization. You'll see right here your squadron, the name of it, region, wing, that sort of thing. What its parent organization is, if you happen to have a group in your wing, what kind of unit it is. This is information that you can't change. This information, it may look like you can change it, but you actually can't change it. This is the information that's contained in the database that if you say did a squadron name change, that would be a Form 27. So down below here is where we have some tabs, though, that are going to show us different information. For example, organization address. We have our mailing address and our meeting address. Those are necessarily different, or in some cases they're not, but in most cases a unit is going to have a different thing. Make sure those are accurate. If you're not getting any kind of mailing from national headquarters, there could be a reason why. So again, looking at these organization addresses, these are changed in a very similar way to that you change your contacts in e-services. You can have a priority, either a primary or a secondary, or an emergency, I believe. And the type of contact, if it's mail, meeting, that sort of thing. Keep in mind, there may be more than one. My unit only has two, a mailing address and a meeting address. We don't have anything more. So the organizational contacts here, this is where the organization itself, again, normally set via Form 27, but can be changed here. You have the primary email address for the organization, a secondary email address, if there is one, a phone number, and then a URL. This is slightly different from the place in e-services where you would submit your unit's URL for validation. That's under IT, completely different. But if your unit has a URL, if you have a website, it should go in here. And that's going to show in the record in the GoCivilAirPatrol.com unit locator. Now, here's the thing, is the unit contacts here. This is the stuff that shows up in the unit locator. The email address and the primary phone number are going to show up right here. Those happen to be my cell phone and my email, by the way. So when you change information here, within a couple of days, doesn't happen immediate, it's not an immediate fee, but within a day or two, it winds up getting changed in the online portion of the unit locator, and new information will show up. Also, there's notes. In the particular case of my unit, we have our officers meeting the first Monday of the month at various locations, and that shows up in that unit notes portion of the unit locator. So if this is accurate, it'll show up there. Make sure you don't put any spurious information in there, nothing weird. So that's how you change the unit locator aspect that's on GoCivilAirPatrol.com. If your unit information, some of you are, I'm sure, probably frantically looking at this right now going, I didn't even know we had information there. But make sure your information is accurate in e-services so it gets correctly reflected in the GoCivilAirPatrol.com unit locator. So some other things to think about. A lot of units have websites. That's great. You'll have a contact us page. Make sure your information is accurate. Just recently, we had a change in staffing at my squadron about 45 days ago, 60 days ago or so. And we didn't change it on the website. Somebody forgot. So we went back in and changed it. So make sure that you check these things as well. People are going to stumble on your website when they're looking for information about Civil Air Patrol. You want to make sure that all of your information is accurate and working. In some cases, you may have a submittable contact form on your web page instead of an email link like this. Test it. Make sure it's still working, particularly if you have a website that's using WordPress, because a lot of WordPress websites, sometimes they will actually have things that change, like the contact form will break or something like that. So it worked this month, doesn't work next month. So check it. Yeah, I occasionally have to check it. Maybe you have a Facebook page. Are you getting notifications if people message your page for info? This can actually contribute a little bit. Facebook will tell you if somebody communicates, like if they reply rapidly or if they take hours or days to reply to you. Well, your unit could have a thing on your unit page that says doesn't ever respond. You don't want that. So make sure you or the administrators for your page are getting the notifications in case somebody messages the page. That's important. So real quick. Hey, Chaplain Gawala, how are you, sir? Have the retention numbers first year and long-term cadets changed? Not radically. They have not radically changed in the last several years, by the way. I'm checking the chat, by the way, in case anybody's wondering. They went up from about 26 or 27% for first-year cadets to about 35%, but we hover right around 60% for our subsequent year cadets, and we're hovering right around 75% or so for senior members for recruiting. So let me see here real fast. Whoops, I clicked the wrong button there. I didn't want to do that. Okay, so a conclusion here at the end of the day, your unit has to be answering the phone for people to get in touch with you. Again, the number of times that we hear from people and they say, I reached out to my nearest unit and I never heard anything back. is a couple times, 3-4 times a week, that's the people who actually will go that extra mile to reach out to us, and they're motivated. How many people hit a roadblock, send off 3 emails, never get anything back, and just throw up their hands and say, I guess Civil Air Patrol is not interested in me, and never bother to dig any further? There could be quite a few of those kind of people. So remember, if you're not answering the phone, somebody else is going to. I can tell you that I've had people come to my unit, not my current unit, but in the past, units in other wings that I've been in. I've had people come to me and they've said, yep, I called the people down the road, I called the people at the unit over there, and nobody ever called me back, so I came here. You guys actually called me back. So if you're picking up the phone, you should be getting those recruits. So to reverse that, reverse the trend of declining new members, we need to ensure that everybody who's interested, everybody can get to us. So, any questions? I'm going to get screen sharing turned off here. Okay. So if anybody's got any questions, I try to keep this one nice and brief, real quick. It's a real simple webinar. It's more of a how-to for a lot of people to let them know exactly where to go and what to do and how to find that spot in the e-services system where they can change that information in the GoCivilAirPatrol.com unit locator. Because frankly, I'll bet a lot of that information is not accurate. So I'm going to check the chat here, see if anybody else has got anything. Just double checking. Making sure we don't have any live chat going on here in the window. Nope, nothing in the group chat. So if I've got no more questions in the chat, I appreciate everybody who's come out tonight to look at our webinar. This will be available online if you want to share it with anybody. We'll send out the URL. Immediately after we conclude the broadcast, it will be available as a YouTube streaming video. So anybody who wasn't able to get to it can see it. And that's the way it is for all of our videos. So we'll have another webinar next month in November. Looking to line up a couple of people. I actually have something in mind, but nobody's confirmed yet. So I don't want to give away the treats, as it were. So, whoops, Ron, hey, you're right. It is, sorry about that. You can change the thing. It does normally default to 25 miles. For some reason, mine defaulted to 100 miles. I don't know why, but you're right. It does default to 25 miles, usually in the unit locator when you first put your zip code in. So it'll give you, people always say the 3 nearest units. It's not truly the 3 nearest units. It's the nearest units within that distance that you've selected. So, okay. Well, if we've got no more questions, then what I'll do is I'm going to close out this one for this month, and we'll look forward to talking to everybody in November. Thanks very much for looking in, and we appreciate your time and what you're doing for Civil Air Patrol. Have a great night.